All right, everybody, welcome to the Marketing Mirror podcast. I am your host, Matt Bork. Today, we're going to talk about your failures, and I have Allie with me. Allie, let's start with your failures.
There's so much happening. There's this dude shoveling snow outside. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm not prepared.
Welcome to the Marketing Mirror podcast, where we help guide and navigate you through the ever-changing world of marketing. So, no smoke and mirrors here, just the unfiltered truth served with a side of wit. Welcome, everybody, back to the Marketing Mirror podcast. My name is Matt Bork, and today I am joined by the wonderful Allie Matos. Allie, how are you doing today?
We're doing pretty good today.
Yeah, you doing pretty good?
We're feeling good. Yeah, we're feeling good today.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for always joining me on these podcasts. I absolutely love chatting with you today. I'm really excited to actually talk about businesses, failures, being open and honest about ours, the things that we've tried, but also what we've learned from them, and to kind of just get it out into the open that a lot of failures mean that you have something to learn from, so that you're able to if you think about it, that's what the data that we read all the time is usually based off failures, and we make decisions. But I'm excited because I think this is something that a lot of business owners, it doesn't matter what size you are, but can share, is that they have failures. And one of the things that I think is that we get too negative often when we talk about failures, when in reality, it means that they were trying something. And ultimately, how awesome is that they're trying things and they're seeing what's working, what's not working. But if they're not taking the time to actually ask the right questions, to listen and to think, well, why didn't that succeed? I thought it was gonna, and it didn't. So let's just jump in from right there. And I was going to get your thoughts if you want to kind of roll into how you feel about the topic, and then we can kind of go from there. But if you are a business owner and you are listening thinking, I have had a lot of failures, and you haven't seen the positives, we're hoping that this is going to help kind of guide you through that. There is a lot of positives. Sometimes we just don't make the time or take the time to listen to what those failures are saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, number one, failures are never really focused on, right? Especially when we talk about as business owners and social media. I think we are now moving into an age where we are feeling more our authentic selves. We feel more safe to share about our failures. Because if you look in anything, I'm really terrible at math, but after a bunch of failures, there's always at least some sort of success, right? Because you learn how to. That's what your numbers
are saying.
That's what the analytics and Q4 with the histogram and the pie charts. But that's what it means, is that it's like every time you fail, it's a learned opportunity. And as we grow in our businesses and as we grow as with our personal life as well. A lot of times when we look at failures, we're like, okay, well, I'm not good enough, or this totally sucked, not realizing that just wasn't for us. Yeah. I know it's kind of like the woo woo in the universe, but really it's not going to be given to you unless it's for you. Right. Yeah. And so whenever I used to have multiple failures, because we all do and will continue to do so, it's just a part of the human experience, is when I experience these failures, we're always down on ourselves. It's very rare that someone's like, wow, I suck at that, or I failed at that. Yay. A lot of times we're focusing on wow, that really sucked. I suck. We put ourselves down. And then we don't have the motivation or the opportunity to go out and do more because we're feeling, sad or whatever the case may be. Right. So I love when we talk about failures are a learned experience. It's a way to adapt and to pivot. As an example, I keep bringing this up, but of course, during COVID, a lot of us were faced with this whole shutdown of our businesses, and we had to pivot and we had to adapt because we were forced to do so. And everyone was doing it too. So we felt, okay, we're all in the same boat. I'm not by myself. But in reality, that's not always the case, right? That was a very, very rare circumstance. Where all of us were experiencing the same thing at the same time. In reality, it's not like that. It's like this, right? We're all having different experiences and different opportunities. And so when we talk about our failures and the learning, is really learning to adapt and to adjust when it comes to our failures, and really trying to look at it as a learned experience. So now for me, a lot of times when I have anything that doesn't go my way, I try not to look at it as a failure, but one, it's not for me. Or number two, what can I learn from this? Yeah. And another thing too that I wanted to talk a little bit about too is just like our goals. A lot of times, like again, where we're going in this day and age is that we're learning to just slow down and relax, right? Like this whole idea of the hustle culture and having to like work so much and do so many things and be like this amazing, successful person is that one, we don't give ourselves an opportunity to be like, hey, I'm proud of you. You're doing well, right? Like you're making a list of things and it's just stuff that is easy and it eases our way into things. Mm-hmm. When we give ourselves this insanity of a list and these goals that are so unattainable in the moment.
Yeah.
It actually hinders our success.
Yeah.
And so then we're seeing all these ways as failures, but in reality, it's like we actually have so many other successes that we're not focusing on because we're only focusing on those failures. Mm-hmm. So I know like even in my life through business, it's like every time I have a success, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. Okay, move on to the next thing. But every time I failed, I would focus on that for weeks on end. And it's like, why can't we do the opposite? Why can't we, when we have these different, missed opportunities or let's say our failures, that we're like, okay, whatever, but let's focus on like the amazing things that are happening. So I think like that is for me is like, a learned experience, but it's also talking about how we can like readjust and pivot, and try focusing more on the successes because our failures ultimately will lead to success.
Yeah. I think you've brought up so many good things there, like from giving yourself what is the word that I'd be looking for? It's like allowing yourself.
Yeah.
To say like, okay, well, what am I learning from this experience? Right? It's kind of interesting because it's like sometimes we'll work backwards. It's like, well, I'd like to make this cake, but I'm going to try something new and it didn't work. It's like, so do we stop just wanting to make cake or do we realize, whoops, I actually just put too much of this in. Yeah. I didn't realize that or this was here or I had too many hands on deck here. And so too many people were putting things in and I kind of lost control of it. And now it's here. You do learn a lot. And I think one of the things that I wanted to add to what you're saying was just, you mentioned about culture. And I think that a lot of times in life, we just don't, well, not just a lot of times, but we do have a culture where there's not a level to screw up. We don't really allow people to try things. I shouldn't say screw up. I should say more try things and creating a culture in a business where you have team members that know that they are free to try things because ultimately some of the greatest successes that we've ever had came from trying something, an idea that somebody, a part of our team had this amazing idea. A lot of us might not even have been on board with it. We might have said, I don't know. But you know what? We trusted each other. We had open communication. We allowed each other to be free in that place and think, yeah, we want you to bring your whole self to this work, including what if it doesn't work? It's like, yeah, but we'll learn something from that, right? And I think that's one of the big things like with businesses that they don't encourage enough. And that we can encourage you is like, please, like create a culture where people feel free to try because even in their attempt at trying or whoever's attempt at trying, you're able to then go back and go, okay, well, what happened that maybe possibly didn't? It's like, well, maybe we didn't have the full support of the team, which is why we needed it. And then now let's try that. Or you know what? The idea just totally, it didn't work. And it's like, okay, cool. Like we don't need to get down on the person. Cause I know for myself, and you mentioned this, but for me, whenever I would attempt something and say I would fail it, I get so down on myself and take it so personally. And I'm not one to, I'd have to like figure it out. Right. Yeah. I've got to figure it out. And I think that's one of the things that I definitely love seeing more and more is businesses actually creating a culture where you can show up to work. Like I understand at Search and Rescue, it's one of the things that we've shared so many times is that we understand as business owners at Search and Rescue Marketing Agency that we borrow you from your life. Your life is your life. And so
I just shared that the other day.
But we understand that. And so it's a real honor to have people come in and we want them to bring their whole self. And this is what I want for other businesses as well, is that people get to bring their entire self because it adds value, which is why I love who we have on our team. Like we have a team of just phenomenal human beings. And I can't thank everybody on our team enough all the time for just being incredible humans first.
Absolutely.
Because, and that's one of the things that even down to everybody on our team knows I'm a very emotional person, but I don't get emotional. I just am emotional. As human beings, we don't get emotional. We are emotional. So if somebody comes with an idea and they're getting a little emotional about it, even then, knowing that there's this freedom to go, so I notice you're getting emotional. What is it that is creating this emotion? So this person can share. And then from there going, I didn't see that. Or you know what, maybe can we just take a moment to breathe and to think about this? And I do think though that a huge aspect of what we're talking about today about our failures and learning from our failures and what they say to us and even how we hear our failures, when we say what they say to us, that also depends too, because I know that, I've been in the room before where I didn't think it was a failure, but somebody took it as an attack at them type thing, right? And realized, okay, so that actually does come back to something that I've dealt in my life with, which is just your own personal trauma, the way that you hear things, and yet at the same time, how awesome is it when you have people at your business that can come alongside and say, it's okay, it's all good, right? Like, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think too, it's like there is this vulnerability, right? When we kind of go outside our comfort zones, it's very safe to feel when we're inside our comfort zones, and it's very safe. We feel protected, and so there is this vulnerability when we're working within our own, work communities and our life and our business, wherever we are, where we like take a little step outside that comfort zone because it is the unknown, and I think that's why it's safe. It's funny because they did a study on people that have like ADHD who they'll watch the same shows over and over again because they know the outcome that's going to happen from it. So they feel safe. And so it's uncertain for them. They don't like the feeling of the uncertainty watching shows that they don't know what's going to happen. And so this is why they keep rewatching those same shows to feel comforted because they know what's going to happen. Yeah. So I think when we jump outside of their comfort zone, it's in the unknown. We have no idea what's going to happen. And there is that vulnerability. There's a little bit of fear there. And so when it doesn't work out and it turns into what we call our failures, it feels like even more of like, crap, why did I leave? I was so safe here, and we're less likely to do that. And so when you talk about creating environments where we allow people to fail, like it's a normal thing. It's like, hey, it's okay that, that happened. It becomes like this idea that, wow, society has told me for years that every time I fail, I should just probably quit. Whereas if we step outside that comfort zone and it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But when it does, it's so fantastic. It's like we're less likely to worry about the next time, and we're more likely to want to step outside those comfort zones, because in that space, like you said, are some of like the most amazing moments, amazing opportunities that we may miss.
Yeah. I know it's interesting as you're sharing that, like I can hear business owners in my head saying, that's great. But like when you have money on the line, that ain't happening.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's where I do have to say, like, I understand where that person's coming from. But at the same time, it's about creating a culture where there's a lot of steps that you can create a culture of where people feel free to be themselves and have that space to bring up the things that they would like to try. And you can actually do a lot. There's a lot of things that you can do in your social media marketing, all of your marketing efforts that doesn't have to be a cost and a learning experience from losing a lot of money. That's one thing that we want to bring up as well. But I do think that having the opportunity where people do feel safe, they feel validated, they feel heard for just who they are, for breathing air, that's absolutely important. It's not about what they can do or not do. And then when they have that freedom, they will bring the most brilliant ideas. And that's something that, again, I'm sharing that exact like wording because it's something that I've experienced in my own life that was a lesson that I learned is I thrive a lot more when I'm able to bring my whole self.
Yeah.
Everything that I'm feeling, everything that I'm not feeling, and to know that I'm in a safe environment to try is something that I thrive in. And I think a lot of people do. And I think giving that opportunity to teams. And so for business owners that are like, okay, I get it. It's like, we're really hoping that what you hear though is that it's really truly listen to your team, hear where they're coming from. Yeah. Think of the culture that you've created and go, have we created this culture? And then work backwards and go, okay, if they'd like to, because people will not be honest when they don't feel like they can be honest. And if you're also like sitting in a room and you want to say something, but you're on eggshells thinking, man, if I say this and this is an attempt, I'm about to say something that we would have to try and I'm scared to even say it, you're not going to say it. And you will not sometimes get that unbelievable idea. And that's one thing that you were talking about even before we started recording, which was like the light bulb, coming up with the idea for the light bulb. And the million times that was probably screwed up, that could have been like, forget it, I quit. It's never going to happen. But the amount that was learned throughout that entire process to get us to the light bulb. And I know there's millions more examples that we can use and analogies that we can share. Yeah. But I think that that's one thing that we just forget is that the importance of allowing people to feel safe in an environment where they can even just bring up an idea that would be a try. Yeah. And this is all just from learning, right? It's all learning from our mistakes that we've made. I've made them many times where I've also realized too that sometimes it's as easy as being so headstrong on your idea and not being open to others. And then as somebody's talking, you're like, no, I have a culture of like, we've created this culture where everybody around us just feels safe to share their ideas. So So go ahead and share your stupid idea, because my ideas are much better.
Yeah.
And you're
totally.
allowing people to share, but you're just going to trump them, when in reality, I've actually been that idiot and done that. And I'm super ashamed that I've been that person that's done it, because I've honestly missed out on some amazing opportunities because I was just an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely an idiot.
And it's true though, because even when you're talking about like, it is like everything is very subjective, right? Like my experience is not the same as your experience. What I would like may not be something that you like. And it doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It doesn't mean I failed. Right. I think that there's like this also is misconception that, you know, if you're part of a team or someone says like, this doesn't work or this isn't good, doesn't mean that what you created wasn't good or didn't work. It's just they have decided in their world that doesn't work, and that's okay, but it doesn't mean a failure on you. There's been many times in my career as well where I've had people say certain things about my work or what I'm doing or whatever, and it doesn't mean anything, you know, like it doesn't talk to me as a person. It doesn't affect, like it shouldn't affect who I am. Because if I'm giving 100% and I'm showing up and I'm trying, that's what I think really what matters. Yeah. So it is very subjective. It doesn't mean that you failed. At the same time though, as well, is what we were talking about before, which was like a tip to do is to just like create smaller projects for yourself or smaller goals. And then slowly as you get there, right? Even when we're talking about like a financial investment, right? I know it's very risky sometimes in business. And like you said, it's very easy to just be like, well, you tried, so try again. But you're like, yeah, well, I just lost 25 grand. So I can't try again. So the idea is to really just like sit back and get feedback. We talk about this in our other episode, but talking about listening is so important. Like get that feedback, you know, learn what happened. What did I do wrong from last time? Strategize, do what you need to do. But the most important thing is to pick it up and start again. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to reinvest in this or whatever. It just means like, what's the other route to go to and how can I celebrate that? Taking it back again to talk about our failures is that like those all lead to successes. It's just a part of our story. Just as the same as like, it was a bad day, not a bad life. You know, like our life ebbs and flows. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have, there's things that are not going to work, but let's focus on the ones that are going to work. And that helps with our own improvement. And we use our failures as a catalyst to our successes. Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. As you were speaking, I just thought that, you know, I just kind of envisioned sitting in the room, because that's what I hope that we feel like when we're sitting in, you know, our meetings with our team. And it's just like, and one of the part of our culture is being able to just infuse curiosity in there. And so to get behind other people's ideas and go, well, why are you thinking that? That's awesome. Well, what do you think? And I think, also one of the things that I love about our team is that we don't, what am I trying to say here? I think that part of what I'm trying to say is that, like, I've always said that it's, let's say you have a new piece of gear. It's like, well, I don't want to go learn that piece of gear and it's at the expense of a client. Right. So, so a lot of what we're talking about here is even like when you have a culture of curiosity and a culture where everybody's able to bring their full self and to share their tries, their ideas and go, oh, I love that, Ali. That's a fantastic idea. So, okay, hang on a second. Let's just like work backwards then. So that idea sounds awesome. So what would it look like then for you to get here? Like, what do we need to do? How can we come alongside you? And then can we maybe do a little bit of research? Can we listen to our target audience? Can we do this? Can we go through? So what we're doing is, we're eliminating a lot of those like little failures right there, right? Like we know we're like, okay, cool. We're refining this. We're getting to it and we're doing it in a very active state together, collaborating. There's a level of being able to like communicate back and forth and saying, well, what are you thinking? And then all of a sudden you realize we're actually refining this. So instead of just eliminating the first thought is like, no, that's going to fail. It's like, no, let's refine it together. So when we do get a chance to try it and give it a go, it's like, we're either very close or we were way off, but we're still going to learn from that one. And I do think that that's something that I'm really proud of our team at, is that that we do our best to research as much as possible about your target audience, about the ideal audience that you're after, and also the ideal audience that you're not after. So we reduce that risk, right? That those failures are less.
Yes.
And the successes are greater. But absolutely. I love that we are listeners. That's why I always kind of start off every podcast with chief listening officer, is that like our job is to listen. If your business does not have a chief listening officer, which in reality should be every single one of your employees, then you need to make it part of their job, because that also helps to eliminate, or to make the failures less, because they're hearing and helping to refine those ideas that we'd like to try.
Yeah, I love that. It's true though. Again, like when we talk about using our failures as a catalyst for success, it is true. It's like all those are just a learning experience. And I love that, talking to your team, working together, how can we be better? Like all those things add motivation to also want to continue. Like you're all invested in it, right? Yeah. Like, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're not safe in a place and then never wanting to come back. Right. Yeah. So.
No, absolutely. We're not going to get the best out of each other if it's like if there's competition, if it's not, I mean, it's interesting. Like, it's like next time, whoever, if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching on YouTube, is like, take a look around the room when you're in your meetings and look at like the culture. Like, what is it saying when someone walks into the room? Are people like, we've all been there where somebody walks into a room and it's like the room gets cold. Yeah. Well, what is that saying? Right. And like, so then, I've been in meetings before where somebody walks in and just commands the room. And so all of a sudden, instantly, that level of being yourself, it just doesn't come out. And so you're not getting the best out of people. So take the time to even just start by acknowledging sometimes the failures of the meetings and realizing, okay, well, we didn't set a tone for the culture here being one that's inclusive and open communication, trying things, even saying things that might sound ridiculous in an attempt at like, well, what about this? Like I absolutely like this. Sometimes it's the littlest thing. Or not the littlest thing. Sometimes the biggest changes start when we focus on ourselves first and go, okay, let's just look internally first.
I could not agree more with you. And I think it does make us, at the end of the day, it makes us stronger. It makes us better, right? Like it's all a part of the learning experience, and it shapes our character. I can't tell you how many times when I first started in this industry, and I'm still, I'm a very emotional person as well. And I do take things to heart. I'm very passionate about what I do. And I know you are too. And so, even if our, clients or people or whatever are going to be like, oh, it's not quite it. It is hard, and you feel gutted because you're like, oh God, I thought it was so good. Or even like taking photos. How many times have I taken pictures of someone? I'm like, oh God, they're going to love this shot. And then the one that I like absolutely did not like, that I was like, I'm not even going to include this. I'll just turn this into a black and white. And they're like, oh, I love this. Like it is that idea that it's like, hey, you know what? Take a step back, listen, but also our own character. How can we be better? Don't take things to heart. Like if you're upset, like you said, like have a good cry, like, listen to some music, go out and do something for yourself. Like try to give yourself a little bit of love, because as humans and like society has taught us to be so hard on ourselves, so hard on ourselves, and to always focus on failures. Like an example I'll have is like even in a restaurant, right? Those little comment cards, like how many times like they're dusty in the corner, like no one's filling them out. But the minute that there's like someone didn't, bring me my tea on time, I'm like, I'm going to go and, complain. So it is that kind of culture that we're kind of like built that way to really just focus on the failures instead of successes. So how do we, as humans, as an agency, like, how do we change it? And I think that's what I'm really proud of us, is that we really are trying to change that narrative, right? And even with our clients, like when we see, okay, that's not working, it's okay. It's totally okay. But how can we adapt and change and pivot, be better, learn from it, and move forward? You don't want to stay in that place. It's okay to be upset, but definitely don't stay there, because there's so much more opportunity that's out there, and ultimately leads to our successes.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I'm not going to add any of that because I think it's phenomenal. And so I just want to like kind of finish by just speaking to the business owners out there and just saying, listen, if this is something that's like resonating with you, or even people that are employees that are work somewhere that's like, I'm in that kind of a bit of a culture. I know that at SNR, like we don't want to have a culture like that where people don't feel like they can just be their true authentic self. And I think a lot of businesses are shifting that narrative. They're realizing and they're acknowledging what truly is happening. And then they're saying, listen, like that's a mistake. We're learning from that. We're going to change our culture. So if you are listening to this and you're like, I'm not even quite sure how to do that or what that looks like, we're always here to help. And again, we can share our successes and failures of what we've tried and what we are trying, and how we're trying to just constantly be growing and learning from each other, and being in a position where we are in growth mode, not defense mode. So anyways, Ali, today was awesome. I really, truly appreciate it. And to all those that are listening, be sure to like, subscribe, wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, shoot us a comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. If there's anything you guys are hearing that you'd like us to talk about and go into a bit of a deeper dive, we would love to do that as well. So again, Ali, thank you so much for today. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk to you next time.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.